You know that feeling when you're parallel parking and you've got 3 inches on either side? Now imagine doing that with a 100,000-ton nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. And someone's shooting at you. Here's something that's going to stick with you. Every American carrier has exactly 3 steering stations. Not 2, not 4, exactly 3. And once you understand why, you'll never look at these ships the same way again. Okay, so before we get into the 3 stations, let's make sure we're on the same page about what steering one of these things actually involves. Because I know what you're thinking. Someone turns a wheel, the ship turns. Simple, right? Yeah, not even close. A Nimitz-class carrier has 2 massive rudders at the stern. Each one weighs 50 tons. That's roughly 10 full-grown elephants bolted to the back of your ship. And those rudders aren't connected to a steering wheel like your old Chevy. They're driven by hydraulic rams. Think giant pistons, with enough pressure to crush a car like a soda can. The helmsman sends an electronic signal from the control panel. That signal travels down to the steering gear room. Hydraulic motors fire up. The rams push, the rudder moves, the ship turns. And here's the thing. All of that has to work perfectly when you're in 20-foot seas, launching 45,000-pound jets off the deck, and possibly taking fire from someone who really doesn't like you. So let me ask you something. Would you trust just one steering position on a ship this critical? Of course not, and neither does the Navy. But here's the part that's really interesting. They didn't just throw steering stations everywhere, because too many is just as dangerous as too few. And we'll get to exactly why that is. All right, let's walk through each station together. And I promise, by the time we're done, you're going to have a whole new appreciation for what these crews deal with every single day. Station number 1 is the center helm on the navigation bridge. This is the main event, mission control, the place where the ship is steered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Picture this. You're standing on the navigation bridge, about 15 stories above the waterline. You've got panoramic views in every direction. Radar displays, chart tables, gyro compass repeaters, communication systems connecting you to every corner of the ship. The helmsman sits at the controls watching rudder angle, heading, rate of turn, and speed. The officer of the deck stands nearby giving orders. The lee helmsman controls engine speed. It's like the cockpit of a 747, except your runway is moving, the weather is trying to kill you, and occasionally someone launches a fighter jet 3 feet from your window. During normal operations, this is the only station actively steering the ship. The other 2 are standing by, ready to take over the moment something goes wrong. But here's the problem we need to talk about. The bridge sits high up on the island, with big windows for visibility, which sounds great, until you realize that also makes it completely unarmored and visible to everything. During World War II, Japanese kamikaze pilots knew exactly where to aim. One hit on the island's superstructure could kill everyone on the bridge and leave an 872-foot ship with nobody at the wheel. Imagine that for a second. 5,000 sailors, no steering, in the middle of a battle. That's why the Navy needed a backup. And not just any backup, a smart one. Hey, real quick, if you're finding this as fascinating as we do, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. It genuinely helps us keep making these videos for you. And if you want more carrier content coming your way, super thanks keeps them coming. We really appreciate every one of you. Okay, so station number 2 is one that I think you're really going to appreciate. Because it's not just a backup, it actually solves a completely different problem. The bridge wings are the port and starboard platforms that extend out from either side of the island. You've seen them in photos, those open-air platforms sticking out like ears on either side of the bridge. Now here's what's clever about them. The bridge wings aren't primarily designed for combat emergencies. They're designed for something that happens every single time a carrier comes home. Docking. Think about what it takes to bring a 1,092-foot ship into port. You can't see the pier from the center helm. You can't judge distances. You can't tell how close you are to the very expensive things you're about to hit. So the captain walks out to the bridge wing, leans over the railing, and can see straight down the entire side of the ship. You can see the pier, the tugboats, the gap between your hull and the dock. You can judge exactly how many feet, sometimes inches, you have before a billion-dollar warship becomes the world's most expensive fender bender. And here's the part that really gets me. The bridge wings have their own steering controls, bow and stern thrusters, rudder controls, engine order telegraphs, everything you need to maneuver the ship independently. Those thrusters are propellers built into the hull that push the ship sideways. Think of them as the parallel parking assist on your car, except instead of a Camry, you're parking a floating city with a nuclear reactor in the basement. But here's the question we need to ask ourselves. If the center helm and the bridge wings are all on the same island, what happens when the island takes a hit? A missile strike on the island could knock out all three positions at once. A fire could make the entire bridge uninhabitable. And suddenly, you've got a 100,000-ton ship with no one at the wheel. That's the problem the third station solves, and this one is genuinely fascinating. All right, this is the one that really blew my mind when I first learned about it, so stay with me here. Station number 3 is called after steering, and it's located in about the last place you'd ever want to spend a Tuesday afternoon. Deep in the stern, below the waterline, inside the steering gear room where the actual hydraulic machinery lives. This isn't a comfortable bridge with big windows and a coffee maker. This is a cramped, hot, noisy machinery space filled with massive hydraulic rams, electric motors, and the constant smell of hydraulic fluid. It's basically the ship's basement. And just like your basement, nobody really wants to be down there, but you're really glad it exists when you need it. But here's why after steering is so brilliant. It's physically separated from the bridge by the entire length of the ship. Whatever destroys the bridge cannot simultaneously destroy after steering. They're in completely different parts of the vessel. After steering has its own gyro compass repeaters, rudder angle indicators, engine order telegraphs, and communications systems. Complete duplicate controls for steering the entire ship. If the bridge is destroyed, control transfers down here. The sailors in after steering take over and keep the ship moving. But here's where it gets really good. After steering has something the bridge will never have: direct physical access to the steering machinery itself. If the electronic controls fail, if the hydraulic systems lose power, after steering has a trick wheel, a large manual wheel connected through gearing directly to the rudder post. And I want you to really picture this. Sailors physically turning a wheel to move a 50-ton rudder against water rushing past at 30 knots. They're using pipe wrenches and breaker bars just to get enough leverage. You're not winning any races this way, but you are maintaining steering control when every single other system has failed. That's the ultimate redundancy. Manual control when the lights go out, the computers die, and everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. And that's exactly why aftersteering is the third critical steering station. You know, this whole redundancy philosophy shows up everywhere on carriers. If you want to see another great example, check out the video on screen right now about why carriers have exactly 4 catapults. Same thinking, completely different system. Really worth your time. Now I know what some of you are thinking. If 3 is good, wouldn't 4 be better? Wouldn't 5 be even safer? It's a completely reasonable question, and the answer is one of the most important lessons in naval engineering. More complexity is not the same as more safety. Every additional steering station means more equipment, more training, more maintenance, and more ways for the crew to get confused about who actually has control of the ship. And that last point isn't theoretical. We've seen exactly what happens when steering systems become too complex. The USS John S. McCain collision in 2017. The ship had a sophisticated integrated bridge system with multiple control stations. During a critical moment in the Singapore Strait, steering control transferred between stations without the crew fully realizing it. The helmsman thought he'd lost steering. He hadn't. Control had simply shifted to another station. But in the confusion, nobody caught it in time. 10 sailors were killed. The ship was nearly lost. And here's the thing that really puts it in perspective for me. Think about your car. Doesn't matter if it's a Ford or a Ferrari. The steering wheel, the gas pedal, and the brakes are always in the same place. You can jump into any car and drive it safely because of that standardization. The Navy learned that same lesson the hard way. Too many options, too many configurations, too many ways to transfer control, and you end up with a crew that's confused at exactly the moment they can least afford to be. With 3 steering stations, the crew knows the system cold. They train on all 3 positions. They know exactly how to switch control and exactly what each station can do. That's the difference between redundancy and chaos. So let's bring this all together, because I think when you see it laid out, it's actually kind of elegant. The center helm handles all normal operations. Maximum visibility, maximum situational awareness, everything you need for day-to-day operations. The bridge wings handle the specialized stuff, close quarters maneuvering, docking, tight channels, while also serving as immediate backup if the center helm goes down. And aftersteering sits deep in the ship, physically separated, heavily protected, with manual backup when everything else has failed. 3 stations, each one solving a different problem, each one covering the gaps the others can't. This configuration has been proven over decades of carrier operations. World War II, the Cold War, modern deployments. It works in peacetime and in combat, in calm seas and in hurricanes. And here's the part that I think really drives it home. Every single time a carrier enters or leaves port, all 3 steering stations are manned and ready simultaneously. The center helm is actively steering. The bridge wings are manned, with the captain ready to take over. Aftersteering is manned and ready to assume control in an instant. That's the level of redundancy the Navy demands. Not just having backup systems, but having backup crews in backup positions, ready to go at a moment's notice. 3 steering stations, 3 chances to maintain control when everything goes wrong. 3 positions working together to keep 100,000 tons of American naval power under command. That number isn't negotiable. It isn't tradition. It's survival. And now you know exactly why. You know, most people walk past a carrier at a naval air show and see a big, impressive ship. But now, when you see one, you're going to be thinking about those 3 steering stations, about the sailors trained on every one of them, about the decades of hard lessons that went into that design. That's what we love about these videos. It's not just about the hardware, it's about the thinking behind the hardware. If this video gave you something to think about, hit that like button. It genuinely helps us reach more people who love this stuff. Subscribe so you never miss our defense breakdowns. And share this with someone who'd appreciate knowing what's really going on inside these incredible machines. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one.